What LSU secondary? As we just talked about with Glenn West there in the last segment, Jeremy, Jarek Bernard-Converse will come back down. You're going to have Greg Brooks and Joe Foucha back there at safety. Jay Ward will move back into the nickel spot. And you got Sevyn Banks, Colby Richardson, Mekhi Gardner as guys that can go out there and play, as well as Sage Ryan. But you would be really, really worried about throwing Foucha right into the fire in an SEC game. But he's been a 3-year starter at Arkansas right next to Greg Brooks for all of that. So you would think those two guys would have some chemistry and would be able to be on the same page. Is that naive of me to think that they're learning a new defense, they're in a new place, and they're playing a new team? But I would think you could pick it up pretty quick.
No, you definitely can. I think, playing with somebody, you just have a world of experience, being on the field with them, being in those battles, being in those tight SEC games. And obviously, like I always talk about, the moment never gets too big, when you've been there and done that, and you can just go out there and execute. And I think those guys have done a phenomenal job with that. And I think, getting this full secondary back with the guys that you already have out there who've been playing well. Love Jay Ward at the nickel position. I think Garner's been playing well as well. So I think, this will be the best version of the secondary that we expect. And then you got Sevyn Banks who got some snaps last week back at too. So I'm excited to see the Arkansas guys. I think they're, going into the season, we thought you'd have to depend on those guys a ton. And I think that opportunity is going to come up this Saturday. So, yeah, I'm excited to see those guys go out there and play. I think, Coach House is going to put them in position to do the exact same thing. And so, yeah, I think, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys play.
It would stand to reason this is a pretty good spot to try to reshuffle your secondary against. You've got a team who's doesn't have very many weapons out there at wide receiver. We know Coy Moore very well. He's one of their lead dogs out there at wide receiver. And you've got QB musical chairs. I mean, obviously TJ Finley won the job. He started early. They brought Ashford in. Calzada's out for the year, and then Finley gets hurt. He was out last week, and they released a depth chart yesterday, and looks like he's third-team quarterback. Looks like they're going to go back with Ashford, who hasn't looked very good. It's not one that's going to strike the fear of God in you.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not at all. I think, looking at, I think Hanny and I talked about it ever, and I'll ask you the same thing. It's like, think about the great Auburn receivers. Think about those just all-American, all-SEC, just dominant forces that just take over the world. I just can't think of any off the top of my head, and I think that's kind of continued this season. They just don't have those weapons on the outside for whatever reason. I think you pair that with just bad quarterback play. It's just hard to see that passing attack, going out there and lighting up the world.
Yeah, look, Duke Williams had a nice little run there. It wasn't necessarily, the greatest wide receiver in the history of SEC, but he was fairly dangerous. Seth Williams, up through the COVID year, was a really talented guy that was really their entire passing game. But no, you're right. They haven't had a bunch of superstar receivers that have gone in there and made huge plays. It hasn't been. They've had a lot of running backs that were really good. They've had a lot of defensive linemen and pass rushers that could play. But they haven't necessarily been as talented at wide receiver, and that's certainly not the case here. And when I was talking to Chuck Oliver right before the season started, and we were kind of kicking some things around, we were talking about Auburn, and he goes, "Yeah, I mean, I think their number one receiver is Coy Moore. You know who that is?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I mean, he's a good player, but he's not 6'6" to run a 4.3. He's not going in the first round. He's not going to be an all-league player. He's a nice piece." And so I think if you had him as your number 3-4 target, you've got something there. If you've got your number one corner following him around, it may not be something that scares you too much. And so for this LSU secondary that has had a lot of moving pieces, but like we said, they're very, very veteran. They're not going to be overwhelmed by the moment, certainly not the environment. And it's just a matter of whether or not they can stay on the same page. And that's been what they've done better than anything over the first month of the season is they just haven't been totally out of place. You had one where Garner bit on the flea flicker against Florida State, and then you had the one play against New Mexico where they ran the little option and had a guy kind of run free. But they were pretty much in the right place for the entire MSU game, which was an impressive job by those guys and by Matt House to have everybody where they were supposed to be. And they made a lot of plays. They missed one tackle on a running play that hurts, but that's not a busted assignment. That's just a mistake, and it happens. But I'm comfortable with that secondary against this Auburn offense and wide receivers. I think it should be an advantage to LSU.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the secondary has played well all year. Matt House has done a phenomenal job matching those guys up, switching things up, putting them in position to make plays. And you think about that LSU defensive line, to me, which is a bad offensive line. They can't get Tank Bigsby going. They really don't want to ever be in third and long. It's just I think they just match up well against this team. And so you figure, with how well they've been playing, you think about, Rodgers as a passer and as a quarterback, and then what you're going to face this week. And obviously you could throw Travis in the mix as well. Like this quarterback play is going to be anything remotely close to what you've already seen this season. So I think for LSU, they feel really, really great about the matchup against this Auburn offense. Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.